Humans have had a close relationship with animals for thousands of years. Scientists agree the domestic dog has been a trusted pet for around 15,000 years. And cats became part of the household from 10,000 years ago. And now it's estimated there are at least 600 million pet cats in the world. Exotic pets have also been kept for thousands of years. It's well documented that the Egyptians kept baboons as pets, and exotic animals kept in the home feature in many ancient texts. In modern times, the keeping of exotic pets has increased. A staggering statistic is that there are more tigers in the US alone than there are in the wild. Animal owners truly believe they are playing a role in preserving the numbers of exotic animals. But on the other side of the debate, there are those who believe it is a cruel practice to keep any animals in captivity. This series explores the issues from both sides, from those who know the dangers, but see the benefits, to others who condemn the keeping of exotic pets. Their stories follow. Driving one of these big trucks is a woman who, if you met at a truck stop, you would see what you think is a tough but fairly normal person. But this truck driver is far from normal, but in a pleasant, caring way. Bonnie is an interstate truck driver, but when she gets home, her life is about her animals.
I rescued her. She had a broken leg when she was a puppy, and they were going to put her down, and I said, how much do you want? How much is the vet going to charge you to put her down? And he said, oh, $50. I said, well, I'll give you the $50 and take the dog.
Bonnie's ranch is far from ordinary. Let's start with the dogs.
I've had up to 50, but being that I'm driving truck all the time now, it's too much. 20 is a little much anyway. It's a lot of work. And I have a great guy that comes out here and works and helps me do stuff. You know, it gets monotonous. I mean, because, you know, you got some that when I'm gone stay in the house and they don't get out. So, you know, you have a mess to clean up. The guys, you know how guys are about doing that. But they do a pretty good job, I have to admit. But, because I got some really old girls in here that are in their, you know, 14, 15 years old. And they can't take this heat and they can't take the bad weather. So you just have to do what you got to do. He's the one that brought the bears home. This is Reno, and he is a giant schnauzer. This is not something that's happened just all of a sudden, trust me. I've been doing this, like I said, for many, many years. I don't think anybody could have enough dogs. I mean, dogs are your buddies.
That's the dogs, about a dozen of them. Next, exotic parrots.
You shut up. You shut up. What did I tell you about that, talking like that? Give Mama a kiss. You love Mama? Oh, I love you too. He's very intelligent. He can do all kinds of little things when he wants to, but getting him to do it's another story. It's like, you know, I don't have to, don't make me.
From there, it's horses, about 10 of them. And then an unlikely friend, a fully grown adult steer.
He's a very good pet. I probably could ride him if I wanted to, but he's a very good pet. And everybody thinks I ought to sell him, but I can't sell him. He's a pet. Shrek is a miniature mule. That's his mama right there.
Yes, that's a bear off in the distance, and its neighbors do eat a lot.
This is what the tigers eat. This is my so-called dispensary. They get chicken. This is what they're getting today. They're getting steaks, yum.
You heard right, tigers.
You have to try to give them variety. You have to give them chicken, you have to give them beef, pork, you give them horse meat. We do get deer in. This is the freezer for chicken. My people that work for me, so what I have them do is I have them take the chicken out, and I make them look at the label for the weight, and I tell them exactly how much I want fed every day. So for them to calibrate it, and then we have records that we keep on how much they eat, who didn't eat what today. Technically, USDA requires you to do that, but I do it on my own because if something happens, I can go to the vet and say, okay, this is what this tiger's done all week long, and he has a better frame of mind of what's happening. This is what the bears eat. This is the bear freezer. We have yogurts, we have butter, we have creams, rice pudding, a little bit of everything. Their favorite, ice cream.
If you're getting a feeling that this is Noah's Ark, you are right. Bonnie is a serious animal lover. Just think about what all those treats cost. Her 2 American black bears were accidental strays. The 750,000 black bears in America kill less than 1 person per year, and attacks in captivity are rare. But is Bonnie at risk with her bears? The answer to that is more about how they are looked after, rather than whether or not they're dangerous. Contrast that with 26 deaths by dog attack each year, although there are millions of dogs in the U.S. alone.
This is Bam Bam and Pebbles. They're about 4 years old now. They came to me. I have big black schnauzer he's a giant. They were following him, and I thought they were dogs, but they end up being bears. And once they got the bottle and realized what was going on, they became my pets. These are American black bears. Come on, show how tall you are. Good boy, good boy. Come on, good girl. Oh, Mama, baby loves you. Mama loves you. I know. And these are my babies, and they've got really long claws, as you can tell, and they usually tear me up. There you go. Good girl. Pebbles, Bam Bam, stand up. Come on. Come on. Good boy. Good boy. Hey, you're stealing them. Okay. They're stealing them. They're stealing them. Good boy. Yes, sir. Mama loves you. I love these bears. You can get in here and I can mess with them. Of course, you don't want to ever trust them because they show no sign that they're going to attack you. I have been bit, I've been clawed, I've been knocked down by them, and usually I carry a taser with me when I'm out here by myself so I can get up. And she's about as unpredictable as you can get. I've scared her and she's turned around and, I walked up on her too quiet and I've scared her and she came at me. But, it wasn't an attack. As soon as she realized it was me, she stopped. I can't express enough that these are wild animals and their mind can change at any moment. They can be killers in a matter of seconds if they wanted to. I have found with my experience with animals, exotics, domesticated, you feed them well, you take care of them well, you give them plenty to eat, they seem to be fine. When you start not feeding them and doing what you're not supposed to do, you hurt them, then they hurt you back. If you come at them aggressively, they're gonna come right back to you aggressively. Like if they're doing something and she's wanting to bite me, I just change her mind and go, no, it's okay. You turn the tables on them. And loud noises will scare them. There's times that, like I'm doing something and they're being nosy, if I don't want them around, I'll slap the side of the tank and they run. I'm not a bear expert and never claimed to be, but being with these, and these are my first challenge with them, I've learned a lot. It's been trial and error. I think they're doing good. I think I'm doing okay with them. Some people may say I'm not, but they seem happy to me, don't they, to you? They're very easy to take care of. I'm really surprised. I've offered them meat, I've offered them fish. I put 4 rolls of hay out there day before yesterday. Look how easy they mangled it. They go up in the trees, they get on them, they climb up on them. They get way up there. They come down to eat and to pick on me. Have you touched one? Come here. Bam, bam. Come over here on this side, touch the butt.
These bears can be dangerous, but that is also part of their appeal. And this could be why predator pets are popular. The feeling of being with these animals is a mixture of fear and fascination.
I'm slightly worried now. Oh, he's licking me.
Oh, dinner. They're very strong. They can take a log and they can literally push it, move it wherever they want to. Oh, look at that. Is that good? When she comes in heat, she gets a little cantankerous and she can get pretty rough with him. But he doesn't show any aggression. He just does his own thing and gets in a different tree. Like a man, goes to a man cave.
Yep.
But this is my baby right here. This is my baby. Yeah. My main concern is keeping them where they're supposed to be, keep them fed, and like I said again, as long as you feed them well, they're not going anywhere. And these guys here can't go back out in the wild because they don't know how to feed themselves. So basically they're mine until I die, and then when I'm dead, I have a sanctuary that's going to take them, and that will take them and the cats. So they already have a place to go. This way people won't have to say, well, she's an old woman, where are they going to go when she dies? Well, there is a place for them to go. And it's a wonderful place. And they will care for them like I care for them. Been there a zillion times to keep on different times and make sure how they take care of their animals, and I'm very impressed. I don't know how long they're going to live and how long I'm going to live, so there we go. They stand on the edge, and this is what happens to my $500 stock tank. Huh? More toys? Huh?
For our crew, bears are one thing, but Bonnie's apex pets require a little more respect. It is estimated that there are more tigers in the U.S. than in the wild globally. Bonnie's younger tiger was born in captivity, and to Bonnie, he is just a big playful cat.
She's, just that playful teenager stage where everybody's a toy and everything we have is a toy. No, gentle. You notice how she has not hurt the dog? Mm-hmm. She hasn't yelped or anything? What are you doing with the water? That's called chuffing. She goes, what was that? Oh, don't run. No. Oh, are you okay?
The concern is what will happen when the big cat reaches maturity. Incidents of pet tigers killing people are rare, but we have to always remember they are an apex killer. So Bonnie, one way or the other, is taking a risk.
Ow! Here, there's a stick.
You want a stick, Bonnie?
Bonnie, here's
No.
a stick.
No, I got it.
No, you stop. Now come on.
Ooh.
Don't bite my leg.
Not just with one tiger, her second one is a fully grown female.
Well, she came to me 7 years ago. She had ringworm and a yeast infection all over her hair, and she was pretty poor, but now you can tell she's magnificent. She's healthy, and she's not that she doesn't like that cat. She's just telling it to back off. But she's my baby, and I love her. Well, she weighs 450 pounds. I go in there and pet her, and I do clean the pen, do everything like I do with like I did with the other cat. But when people are here and the cameras, she gets bashful. So, and I think, she's back here in the back. She don't get a lot of people here to socialize with her. If she had more people to socialize with her, she'd probably be all over us. But really, she's a very good cat. She's not mean. She's not aggressive. You know, when she's scared, you saw what she did. You know, she kind of growls a little bit, you know, but I mean, that's just to show you to back off. You know, she's a tiger. Again, you know, don't feed her, she'll eat you. I've only been scared of one cat in my life. I was in the pen with 2 cats, and I was against the fence like this, and they double teamed me. One come here and one come here. They've never hurt me, but it is definitely a feeling that, you know, okay, this could be it. You know, but otherwise, no, I'm not afraid of them. I mean, I should be. I mean, I'm very let's put that a different way. I'm not scared of them, but I'm very cautious of them. You can't, I don't know how to explain this feeling, but I mean, I just don't have the fear of them, but I know they can kill me. I know they can hurt me. You know, I don't turn my back on them. I mean, I know what they are. I know that they can be an aggressive animal, and they can be friendly one day and be an idiot the next day. The thing is when you're feeding them meat, get out of the pen. Why do you want to be there? They're eating. If they're having a bad day, why irritate them? Leave them alone. Let them just go through their bad day. It's a sense you have with animals, you know. If you have that sense, your chances of getting hurt is minute, you know. But if you're bullying them or doing things and you don't pay attention, then you get hurt, and that's what usually happens with people. They're not for everybody, you know, and not everybody wants them. They're a big expense. They cost a lot of money every month to feed. It's not that they're a lot of work, but you have to take care of them. You have to know when something's wrong with them. But that's the whole idea of owning animals anyway, isn't it? Oh, come on, Nushka. Come on, Mama. Come on. Anushka. It comes from Alaska, and it means the first ray of light. So that's what I thought of. And then Sunita, the little one's name, is a Spanish name for beauty. But those are my children, as children go.
The American bison is an unpredictable and at times lazy and unconcerned animal. They appear peaceful, but this large mammal has a temperament that is totally unpredictable. Bison roam the plains of North America in their millions. Hunting decimated their population down to less than 1,000 animals. Today, things are looking up. The population is growing, and to one family, a pet bison is the perfect house companion, even if the house is a little A-frame cottage on the plains of Texas.
People that don't know me think I'm crazy, and the people that know me know I'm crazy. I've been here for 31 years, and I've been training horses for a living, and I use buffalo or bison to train my horses with. Yeah, I was fascinated with them when I was a kid and never thought about even owning one. I don't think when I was young you could legally own a bison. They're a little on the crazy side, and most people that raise cattle don't want to mess with them because they tear your pens and stuff up. They're a lot wilder than a cow is, and they're harder to handle for most people, but if you know how to handle them, they're almost as easy to work as cattle are.
Sharon and R.C. are both extreme animal lovers.
We both have the fascination with bison. I'm not much for the little bitty dogs or anything like that. I like the wildlife. And that's one reason why R.C. and I, fit together, because we both like the wildlife. The more Western it is, the better we both like it. First time I ever saw a bison, of course, was R.C. I mean, in life, I've seen them on TV and all that, but first time was whenever R.C. brought some home to train his, cutting horses. After that, we decided to own Wild Thing, and he become our pet.
Keeping a bison as a pet does have its challenges. They can weigh up to 2,700 pounds and run at over 30 miles per hour, and they can get a little grumpy.
A lot of times you got to go in the pen with them, and you got to know your distance and everything, because if you get too close, they're going to come after you, or they're going to run away. And if they don't run away real quick, they're fixing to come and get you. They're the largest land animal in the United States that's native to the United States. They can outrun any horse. It's always dangerous being around a herd of bison because you don't know when one's going to attack you. And I have had them horn my horses and knock my horses all the way down on top of me.
Oh, he's been nice. He's putting it back in place.
I've been in this situation a lot. One particular cow one time come after me, and if I hadn't had a jacket, I threw it on top of her horns, and I got out of the pen while she was fighting the jacket. He got me down one time 3 times in one day, and my wife had to dress me for 3 days.
Hello?
He knocked me down. He was wanting me to be a buffalo and play with him, but I got to an axe handle and explained to him we didn't do that.
R.C. counts Wild Thing as his pet and his companion on the ranch. This big bison is, at times, almost cute.
Wild Thing, of course, you know, I mean, he's a little orange calf, you know, whenever we get him. He's about 2.5, 3 months old. And of course, RC's trying to halter train him and everything, and he conquers that. But then I have a brilliant idea, and I said, well, why don't we bring Wild Thing in the house? Hello, Wild Thing. And he says, you don't understand. He is a bison. He could tear up your house. You may not have nothing left. And I, well, you don't live once. You bring your cats and your dogs and your kids in the house, so might as well. So ever since then, we've been bringing Wild Thing in the house, and he's grown up with us. He has lots of personality. Even though he's a bison, he's got personality. I mean, if he gets his feelings hurt, he goes and pouts. And you know when he pouts, because he just has that certain look in his face and the certain movements that he gives. Wild Thing also likes to be pushy sometimes, but then again, Wild Thing can be loving. Wild Thing! Hello, baby boy. But only to RC and I. Only the past 10 years, I've been able to actually touch him and groom him. I mean, I'm always out there taking pictures of him and different things like that. I can wear fringe and wear big headdresses that I make with feathers. RC, he can't wear fringe around him, not safely. So, you know, and I think it's because Wild Thing's used to RC being just a cowboy, and he's used to me being just out there, because, I mean, I'm always out there. So he never knows what to expect of me. But there's times that Wild Thing is sitting outside, relaxing, and I may kind of crawl in and lay close to him. I can't touch him, I can't lay up against him, because then he'll jump up. But I do lay in there with him, and then sometimes RC and I both will lay in there together. And I mean, you know, he can be, you know, seem real sweet, but he's not a, you know, sweet animal per se, you know. I mean, he is a very dangerous animal for others.
Well, I'm afraid he might tear up stuff, you know, if we brought him in. But when I brought him in, it was kind of odd because he behaved himself in here. And then pretty soon I was leaving the door open, and he'd come back and forth in the house, but he never used the bathroom in the house. If he'd ever used the bathroom in the house, this deal would have never happened. He potty trained himself. I do not have a clue how you could potty train a buffalo. Now that he's gotten big, we have to move coffee tables and couches around. It's like having a small car come through your house. He has a hard time getting his horns through the doors. We've had people eat with us before at their own risk, but it's not probably perfectly safe for them, although I'm willing to lay down my life to save theirs. When the grandkids come over, we have to put up fences, we have to put up everything in the house. We don't have to when Wild Thing comes down. I'd rather have the Wild Thing in the house than my grandkids most of the time. So far, he hadn't tore up anything. He's just been perfect in the house. He looks at everything. He's real curious about everything in the house, but he doesn't tear up anything. A lot of times, as soon as he walks out of the house, he'll knock my barbecue pit over, but it's outside. But in the house, he's a perfect gentleman. He's unpredictable. In the house, he's pretty predictable. Outside, he's really a crazy, wild, crazy animal outside. He's very dangerous for anybody else to be around. It's taken 10 years for Sharon to be able to go around them safely. And I still want to be there for her, because I will attack him. I can't win, but he thinks I can win. Always being the alpha, you got to be the alpha. You got to have enough courage to stand up to him, even though you know you can lose. I don't have a chance against him, but he thinks I can. Once I get him by the horns, he thinks I got him. It's a big bluff.
It is likely that Wild Thing is the only fully trained bison in the world. His skills go beyond wrecking the fences.
He pulls a chariot, plows a garden. He was her best man at her wedding. My boy's the first one to ski behind a buffalo on sand. And my daughter's the first one to snow sled behind a buffalo. He eats at the dining room table with us. Any crazy thing I can think of to do, I do it. He's the first one to ever pull a canoe.
There are times that Wild Thing seems to get what's going on, even at a big event like his owner's wedding.
I just thought it's something different to do. I didn't know anybody ever know about it but us, but I thought it was kind of cool to have a bison or buffalo as a best man.
Our minister, he knew us already, so
He wasn't real comfortable though.
no, he wasn't real comfortable, but he liked it. I mean, he thought it was neat, you know, and he only said only for us, not for everybody. Our wedding has been all over the world.
He was a good gentleman. He did throw the rings off his horns though. I see him as a little baby. I don't see him as a big buffalo. He's a baby to me. He's not big to me because I've raised him, and he's still a baby to me.
Yeah. And when you look at his little face, it just looks so sweet. So you just fall in love with him, you know.
I have no fear of him at all, but I do know when not to mess with him. He's moody. There's sometimes I know that I better leave him alone.
There is no doubt that this is a dangerous animal. It could escape and cause a lot of trouble. But to date, Wild Thing has seldom wandered beyond his local street.
If he gets out, everybody just take pictures from their porch, but they know not to go around him.
Yeah.
He goes down the road about a quarter of a mile and fights a cedar tree. And I learned the first time I went down there, I better let him fight the cedar tree for a little while, because he'll come after me if I try to make him quit too soon. Mm-hmm. So I let him go ahead and fight it for a little while, then I'll put a rope around his horns and lead him home. He's got a real big barn, and he has fans in it, and I water the ground every day because it's hot this time of year, and he stays pretty comfortable. Of course, his favorite place is in the house. I go there and feed him every day. I can pour the feed in the trough. If you try to pour the feed in the trough, he'd kill you. He don't want anybody feeding him but myself and Sharon. I have let other people feed him through the fence, and he'll attack them.
RC treats Wild Thing with mutual respect, but it is RC who has to do the cleaning up.
I just got a lot of joy out of him. I got to clean his poop out of the yard every day, and you know what? I'm glad it's out there so I can clean it up, because I just enjoy him. I brush him every day. I spend more time with him than I do my wife. I'm in the pen with him when he's tearing up stuff usually. He may be throwing the canoe in the air or tearing the fences up. I stay in the pen with him. Ever since he hurt me one time pretty good, I think he knows he hurt me, and now he don't want to. And the hard part when we're filming or doing something out there and we want a video or something, I can't get close to him when he's tearing up stuff. But for the opposite reason, you think.
Woo!
If I get close to him, he's gonna quit. Because he's gonna protect me by quitting. So if I wanna, Sharon's doing a video of him tearing up a fence, I gotta stay back far enough that he won't quit. Because once I get in a danger zone, he shuts it down. He knows I'm his best friend because I never do anything against him. I do everything for him.
Wild Thing will be here
All his life.
all of his life.
Yeah, we'll never give up Wild Thing. He hopefully he's middle age. He's 12 now, and he should live to be around 25 at least, I hope. And he's not going anywhere. There's no amount of money could ever buy him. He'll never be for sale.
Never.
And he would be too dangerous for anybody else to have. And one thing about the bison, there are some other trainers. There have been other trainers. I've known 4 of them killed in the last 5 years. And they kill nearly all their trainers. And he may kill me, but I hope he don't. And I sure want to protect her.
It's hard to define Tippi Hedren, the Hollywood legend and star of The Birds, Marnie, Roar, and The Countess from Hong Kong. She has been an active humanitarian, creator of a multi-million-dollar manicuring industry, and is the only actor to have worked on films with both Alfred Hitchcock and Charlie Chaplin. But her real passion is with the beauty and majesty of the big cats. Her recent biography looks into her acting career, but spends more time on her love of animals. Tippi is the founder of Shambhala, a sprawling 40-acre wild animal sanctuary a few hours north of Los Angeles. Shambhala is home to around 30 big cats.
I can't even imagine my life without these big cats. I can't even imagine it. I mean, they've given me so much. Certainly on understanding the species and totally respecting the qualities that are inborn into those beings and what is in that brain and what activates those instincts and just getting to know these animals. It's been a great honor. It's been something that we have to have done to be able to give them the life that we have given them, to be able to understand them. We can't understand everything about them. Enough to really give them a good life. There's something very, very fascinating about something of great beauty. The personality of the great cat is varied and elaborate and dangerous, and you know, they can kill you without even thinking twice about it. Well, I've always been in love with them, even before I even had a possibility of going to Africa. Seeing them actually in their own environment, in their own way of life and being free, and it was an astounding time.
Shambhala Reserve is not a zoo or an animal park. It was set up to take on the role of looking after animals that no longer had a home in the U.S. Some were dropped off at the gates, others have come from circuses or zoos, and many from private pet ownership. It is estimated that over 3,500 tigers alone are in private ownership in the U.S., with many of them now too large to look after.
I don't know the exact numbers of them, but I know it has diminished because people are getting smarter. I mean, with the exotic feline, you're dealing with an apex predator. You're dealing with an animal who could just as soon kill you as just walk across the room. They are extremely dangerous. They have instincts born in them that can never be removed. And they are dangerous.
Tippi Hedren knows too well the dangers. During the production of her feature film Roar, tigers and lions featured heavily in the story. This meant working closely with a number of dangerous animals, and incidents did happen.
I had seen a number of accidents caused by these animals. I was hurt. Practically all the people on our movie had some sort of an encounter with one of the animals, with a lion or a tiger. And, they were going to name a wing at the Palmdale Hospital after us because we were there so much.
Melanie Griffith, Tippi's daughter, a well-known actor in her own right, was also on the set of Roar. Melanie was very used to having the big cats around, but even then, things can go wrong.
Gosh, she was leaned over. She did something. Anyway, one of the cats was a lion, and it got her right across her forehead. I just grabbed her and ran, got out the gate, and put her in the car, and we went to the doctor. And she had to have a whole, all these stitches put in her forehead. Fortunately, he did a really good job. You'd never know it. So I do know from where I speak, these are not animals that should be in somebody's home as a pet or in captivity in somebody's backyard in an 8x10 cage or, that kind of confinement. I think the American public is becoming smarter. They're becoming more aware of the fact that this is it's simply brutality to have those animals in a circus. It's not only brutal to keep the strict confinement that they're in, the treatment that they have in order to do those stupid tricks that they make them do is, it's obscene. It's horrible, and those poor animals, I'm surprised more people haven't been killed by these animals from the treatment they've had.
Shambhala is Tippi's home. She shares the 40 acres with her cats, and in the past, it was common for some of the animals to live in the house, even to the point of sleeping on the bed with her daughter, Melanie. Tigers and lions were their pets, so much so that this image of a tiger jumping through the kitchen window was not set up. It was just one of the many daily events that happen over many years of rearing the big cats. But Tippi reached the conclusion that rather than having them as pets, they should be studied and left to live their natural lives rather than be part of the household. The decision was made to stop the interaction with the animals, especially after the dangers became more noticeable.
There was a whole group of women. They were in college. They wanted to have a photograph with a tiger. And they found the tiger, and the tiger was trained to stand there and be photographed. And they all went up and had their picture taken with the tiger, and one of them went up, and the tiger moved and stepped on the girl's foot, and she screamed, and the tiger jumped her. There are situations that are so frightening and so unnecessary that never should happen. In fact, at one point I remember gathering my staff around and I said there will be no more contact with any of the animals again. Right now, it's over, it's done. And they were all really angry because they really enjoyed having that one-on-one with the animal, with the lion or the tiger. And they were smart, they knew what they were doing, but that doesn't make a difference. You're dealing with an apex predator who has the top say. They have the top word. It's a great honor to have one of these animals be your friend. To know that that animal recognizes you and likes you, but they're a weapon. They're a weapon, and they operate simply on their minds and their instincts. And you can't ever forget that. When you're not dealing with a killer, I think any kind of an animal needs to have whoever becomes the power of in a captive situation must know everything about that species, about what does that animal need and what can I give it that they need, not what I feel like giving them. You know, oh well, I've got an 8x10 cage out in my backyard, that'll be fine, he'll fit in there. That's not enough. No, there's a great deal to know about an animal, any animal that you decide to take into your life, no matter what it is. Whether it's, my little cat that just walked by or whatever. What can I give that animal that will give him a life that he will be content? And if you look at it that way, there probably wouldn't be so many unhappy, miserable animals in captivity. I think there are a lot of people who would like to have a wild animal as a pet. Of course, it depends on the type of wild animal that you choose. However, if you're choosing an apex predator to become your pet, you're making a very, very big mistake. A huge mistake, because the instincts in those animals are it's in their brain, and there's nothing you can do to change that. They will always be a danger. You just don't ever know when it's going to come to the foreground, and most likely you wouldn't have the strength or the knowledge of how to react to it. I mean, these animals are powerful beyond belief. I don't know, the tensile strength of these animals is one that we can't, in their greatest amount of power that they exude, there isn't any way that you could fight that other than a bullet. I feel very, very grateful that I've been able to have this life with the big cats. I am very grateful that I have managed to become an older woman. I've still got all my limbs and I'm still walking upright, because there have been times when I was put in the hospital, because you're dealing with an entity that is so powerful and so unforgiving, and they're not good at telling you what their plans are. We feel very, very fortunate that we haven't had any serious problems with these animals. And I do not recommend anyone acquiring a lion or a tiger as a pet for any reason. The fascinating thing about them is that you just never know. I mean, you can have 10 years of just absolute angel lion, angel tiger, and then bam. It's like playing Russian roulette.
Shambhala has its role. It is one place where lions and tigers can feel safe and cared for. Tibby Hedren has done so much for these animals. They are in captivity, but the respect shown to each and every one of them goes without saying. But the final word on owning a predator pet is a warning.
With the exotic cats, you're dealing with a serial killer.
Humans have had a close relationship with animals for thousands of years. Scientists agree the domestic dog has been a trusted pet for around 15,000 years. And cats became part of the household from 10,000 years ago. And now it's estimated there are at least 600 million pet cats in the world. Exotic pets have also been kept for thousands of years. It's well documented that the Egyptians kept baboons as pets, and exotic animals kept in the home feature in many ancient texts. In modern times, the keeping of exotic pets has increased. A staggering statistic is that there are more tigers in the U.S. alone than there are in the wild. Animal owners truly believe they are playing a role in preserving the numbers of exotic animals. But on the other side of the debate, there are those who believe it is a cruel practice to keep any animals in captivity. This series explores the issues from both sides, from those who know the dangers but see the benefits, to others who condemn the keeping of exotic pets. Their stories follow. Gilbert's Bar G Ranch sits between the Rocky Mountains and the Sinbad Desert in Castledale, Utah. Since the 70s, Dwayne Gilbert has run a variety of livestock, including cattle and horses. Today, semi-retired, he raises a small herd of Grant zebra. Horses have been domesticated for thousands of years. Yet despite how similar they appear, zebra have never been tamed.
They've had lions chasing them for thousands of years, okay? Anything new, anything happens, they run. That's the only thing they know is to run or bite and kick. So if they're cornered, they're gonna bite and kick. I've heard stuff on TV that they've seen instances where a zebra could crush a lion's head. I would believe it.
Dwayne has been running zebra for around 20 years and applies the knowledge he's gained from raising horses.
We raised horses for a lot of years. We had a breeding stallion, run 20 head of brood mares. So I understood horses a lot. And a friend of ours in California says, you know, you like horses, you do really well, you gotta try zebras. And so we bought a few zebras and we just really enjoyed them. When we got our first zebras, it was a little bit cold. So I called the zoo and they said, oh, you have to have heated barns and you have to have this and you have to have that. So I did that and the zebras were beating each other up. They didn't like being contained. And so when I called my friend, he says, turn them loose. Zebras have to have a place to go. I turned them loose and everything was fine.
To an experienced rancher like Dwayne, handling a zebra herd is not unlike raising other, more common livestock.
When we load the babies up, when they're ready to wean, we'll go up to our corrals and I'll feed them up there and we'll put them in a corral. The next day I'll feed outside the corral and I'll just stand at the gate and wait for the ones to come out that I don't want until we have what we want left in there. We go from there into a loading alley and right into a horse trailer. It's like working with wild horses or cattle. They're not broke to lead. You're not going to just push them in. If you'll notice, I fed my zebras, I strung the hay out. They're just like other animals. They have a pecking order. If you don't string it out, if you've got it all in one container in a feeder, you're going to have 3 or 4 in there, and you're going to have them kicking and biting, and they'll still grab the hay, pull it out of the feeder, and eat it off the ground. And so I rather bring it out here where there's some grass and it's a little bit cleaner, and string it out, let the zebras find their pecking order, and they have a place to run. They have a place to go more than just 10 feet in case something happens.
Dwayne's years owning zebra have made him highly knowledgeable about his striped equine herd.
If there's a situation that we have to have a vet here, then we'd sure call them. I've used a couple of different vets. I know more about them than they do, but they're there with their experience, and so that they can help do their end of it. As far as bringing them in, putting them in a chute or something, I'm more familiar with them, and they just kind of stand back, and then when we get them in there, then they're able to do what they can.
While many zebra owners raise their unusual pets to be fully domesticated, Dwayne prefers his to remain wild.
I leave them wild for a reason. I don't halter break, I don't bottle feed my baby zebras. When I want zebras in my herd, I want them so that they're scared of me, okay? I don't want one that's not scared of me to where if there's an incident, it's gonna, hurt me. I don't want that. As any other animal, especially equine, you take a stallion, and if they're not scared of you, when they get their hormones, a horse of any kind, you don't know if they can turn on you or at some time bite you. And zebras are the same. And if they're tame, they're not scared of you. And I can take my stallions and they're just like this. Slow down a little bit, bud. You can feed them, they'll come up to you, be right by you when you want to feed them. But if you move, they're gone, okay? I like that. Another thing I like about this is natural out here. There's cleaner grass, they have an area, they're not in a corral where it's chances of infections or stuff.
As a practiced rancher, Dwayne is always alert when working around large animals, especially unpredictable wild animals with a kick that can easily crack a skull.
We do have coyotes here. We have mountain lions that'll come down occasionally from the mountains. One of the things we have to watch is dogs. A zebra will kill a dog real fast. And yet, if they're in a contained area, the dog will scare them. So that's, again, if they're out here, they're fine. They'll chase a dog down because it's a predator to them, and they're going to defend their babies. I could probably walk over there, but anybody different, they're just scared. They're leery of anything new, anything, more than one person out here.
Zebras are aggressive animals, and fights between males are common and violent. In May of 2018, a woman in Zimbabwe was attacked by a zebra she had kept as a pet for 10 years. It bit off her thumb and part of one breast. Even as an old hand, highly experienced in handling livestock, Dwayne has been on the receiving end of a zebra's bad mood.
There was a time I sold a little male zebra, and he was, I think, 3 or 4 months old. And the guy wanted me to deliver him. So in order to keep it calm, to keep from hurting itself. I rode in a horse trailer with it, and I had a halter on it, and I would hold it. And he kept trying to bite my leg. Every time you'd think he was okay, he'd go wham, and he'd try to bite my leg, and I'd have to hold his head up. You know, another time we weaned a baby that was just a week old from its mother, and I usually run them through a chute that's got rubber belting on it to protect them, and then we just let the mother out and hold the baby. Well, I got in with the baby after the mother got out, and she was going over the top trying to bite me. I thought, you know, this is not a good situation. I should have been farther away, but luckily she couldn't reach me. But there again, she was protecting her baby.
A strong protective instinct and an equally strong tendency to startle makes for a highly unpredictable animal. So do zebras make good pets?
People want some that are bottle fed. When they want a bottle fed one, they take them anywhere from 2 days old up to 10 days old to 30 days old, and they can still bottle feed them. When they bottle feed them, it just makes them gentler. Petting zoos want a gentle zebra, okay? People that want to put one with a couple of horses and have in their yard, in their pasture, they want one that's calmer, so they'll buy one and raise it on a bottle. Other people, I've seen them take them at 6 months old, 10 months old, a year old, and put a halter on them and still break them to lead. They take a lot of work in order to get them at that point, though. A bottle-fed baby will bond with the person that's feeding it. We've seen an instance in California one time. We visited some friends, and they had a little bottle baby zebra, and it was only 30 days old. And they had kind of a party. Well, this zebra would follow its mother around, which is feeding her, you know, on a bottle, follow her around, and if somebody would come up and talk to her, she would get in between the two people. Like, this is my mom, leave her alone.
Dwayne also breeds and sells his zebras, and his customers have a whole range of different reasons for wanting to own one.
You know, I've been raising them over 20 years, and, you know, you just, I don't know, it just seems like we have a number of people every year still call and say, you know, I got a zebra from you, I want another one. And of course, petting zoos, they've been good clients. There's still so much of the public out there that doesn't know that you can own a zebra.
And it seems owning zebras can also bring some completely unexpected surprises and special moments.
One time a young girl from Salt Lake called me. She had heard we had zebras and she had just loved them. And I didn't know her. She called and says, if we brought a photographer down, could we get some pictures of me in my wedding dress with the zebras? And I says, you can try. But I says, you put a white dress on and step out in front of them zebras and they're gonna leave. And she says, well, I'd really like to try. I just love everything about zebras. Her and her mother showed up and she got in her wedding gown and had the photographer down here, and we came down here and I put some feed out for the zebras, and they left the feed and walked right up behind that girl in that white dress like, that is something different. You just don't know how they're gonna act. So many times I think they're gonna just run and get away from anything that's new, and yet all of a sudden they'll turn around and say, hey, this doesn't scare us. See, we've got one here that says, there is something different over there.
They may not make good riding or working livestock, and their flighty nature makes them dangerous. But it's clear that the lives of Dwayne and his family are obviously enriched by having their very own zebra herd.
We love our zebras. I'll come out here in my truck and watch them, and you'll see the same thing as you'll see zebras in the wild. And to watch them run and play, especially the babies, you know, you'll get 4 or 5 babies together and they'll just run around the pasture playing and dart in and out of the other mares. and they're an animal. So you just have to watch them and learn about them.
Aren't they cute? Well, yes, they're cute, all right. Aren't they a little unusual looking?
Yes, they're monkeys.
Chimpanzees share 98% of our DNA. Their intelligence, playful nature, and their resemblance to human babies once made them popular entertainers and even popular pets.
Oh, boys, please, stick that in your mouth. Now, boys, you mustn't buzz like this. Danny, sit up here in the chair.
Out of all kinds of creatures that you could have as pets, chimps are probably the worst pet that you can ask for the chimp's benefit. You may get the greatest joy in the world by having a chimp, but what does the chimp get out of it?
Martine Colette is the founder of Wildlife Way Station, an exotic animal sanctuary that a colony of 40 chimpanzees now call home.
Chimps need chimps. They need to grow up in a colony with young chimps and old chimps and in-between chimps, and chimps have personality, cranky chimps and happy chimps and dominant chimps and subordinate chimps, and chimps learn by watching. And baby chimps learn everything by watching the adults. And they grow up with chimpanzee skills, which then allows them to take the rightful place in the world of chimpanzees.
Having worked closely with chimpanzees for more than 40 years, primatologist Bob Ingersoll agrees.
I mean, it's like being a human. You could build me the nicest apartment on the planet. I could live here in this apartment and have a beautiful view like I do, but if I didn't have anyone to talk to or anyone to express my humanness to, that would be a pretty harsh existence. Chimps need other chimps, just like humans need other humans.
Bob was part of the controversial NIM research project in the 1970s, in which researchers explored captive chimpanzees' ability to learn language.
Chimps are chimps, bats are bats, and they behave with their genetic predisposition, but on the cellular level, they're very similar to us. So it makes sense to me that those animals are thinking just like us. Well, I actually had 2 years of experience before I met Nim, and Nim came back to the University of Oklahoma in September of 1977. So I knew all of his brothers. I knew several of his other siblings that were twins, several female and male chimps. But I took to Nim quickly, and I saw Nim as a needy chimp that needed a friend, and I wanted to be his friend.
Bob worked very closely with Nim and his siblings, teaching them American Sign Language. He eventually learned that chimpanzees are not as similar to human beings as we'd like to think.
First and foremost, chimps need to be with other chimps. Secondarily, they need an area, a place where they can be together that's comfortable to them. And in captivity, that's very difficult. I mean, I work with a number of sanctuaries, and that's always our problem, that no matter what, you can't give them freedom. We do what I call the illusion of freedom as best we can, but at the end of the day, they're still in captivity. And like I keep saying, captivity is the enemy.
In most U.S. states, it is now illegal to own a chimp. And since 2015, when captive chimpanzees were classified as an endangered species, they can no longer be used in invasive testing.
A few years ago, the United States, put a moratorium on that and then ended it. And NIH and the government agencies that own the chimps that were part of all that are now in the process of retiring them. Chimp Haven has been established, which is the National Chimp Sanctuary in Louisiana. There are several hundred chimps there and probably several hundred more that will be going there. So chimps in the United States are at least the ones that were institutionally held by either the government or pharmaceutical manufacturers or drug companies or hospitals. They're now in the process of retiring those animals. The pets, on the other hand, and the entertainment chimps, not quite so lucky.
Most of my colony is from biomedical research, and I am pleased and proud to say chimpanzees are amazing. They are very philosophical. They do learn, they adapt well, and we probably have the biggest group of chimpanzees in the western United States here. And there are bigger chimp sanctuaries in Florida and in Louisiana, and they have, of course, bigger grounds and big opportunities than we do here. But based on all the knowledge I have had, we've had only one really, really tragic chimp that came to us. He was a self-mutilator, and he would bite and rip and destroy anything from the end of his fingers to as far as he could reach with his mouth on both arms and hands and down his legs. And it took us 5 years before we could stop that type of behavior. But stop we did. Well, actually, he did. We gave the opportunities, we gave different options, and he adjusted and adapted. And towards the latter part of his days, the last few years of his life, he lived in a group of chimpanzees. And I'm thrilled.
Many chimps now living in sanctuaries came from private owners who learned that baby chimps may be cute, but adolescent and adult chimps can be deadly.
No, I wouldn't say that a chimpanzee was necessarily a predator in the sense that a big cat or a lion or any of those, or a crocodile or barracuda fish or whatever, are predators. But in the wild, chimpanzees cooperatively hunt. They eat monkeys. They hunt monkeys. They hunt bush buck, and that's fairly natural. I think that's also, I'm interested in chimp cognitive behavior, and when you understand what they do in the hunting situation in the wild, it's fairly complicated. They send out points. They talk amongst each other. They move the animal to the tree that they're going to do whatever. So the planning and the advanced thinking and those sorts of things that you see in that context are complicated, and they are definitely preying on those monkeys.
Those who do choose to take on chimpanzee ownership rarely keep their dangerous pets for more than a few years.
Very seldom, very seldom. By the time a chimp is 5, 6 years old, sometimes 7, it's already becoming a chimp. It's assertive and it wants to do this, and unless you understand chimps and you are a good and a kind trainer, you're not going to be able to teach this chimp what you need him to do, because you're not treating him in that manner. This is your pet, this is your baby, and they can be dangerous. As you've heard about some of the accidents that happen throughout the world, they're pretty brutal.
In 2009, Charla Nash was severely mauled by her friend's exotic pet. She lost both her hands, her nose, ears, and her sight.
Stand for 911, where's your emergency?
This is Sandy. 231 Rock Crimmon Road.
What's the
Send
problem?
the police. Send the police. He's killing my friend.
Who's killing your friend?
My chimpanzee. He ripped her apart. Hurry up!
With a gun.
Hurry up, please!
There's someone on the way.
With guns, please! Shoot him!
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey...
He ripped her face off!
The easily visible muscles on this chimp with alopecia show just how strong these chimpanzees are. Combine that strength with almost human intelligence, and the chimp can be a formidable threat.
Chimps are dangerous because most people do not understand what is a chimpanzee. In a world of chimpanzees, might is right. You know, there is a very definitive hierarchy and so on and so forth. There is order in a chimp colony. It may not appear so for somebody standing outside and watching some of the behavior, but there is order. But chimps are dangerous. They are 5 times as strong as you are. They have an intellect of 5, 6, and occasionally even a 7-year-old child. That's very bright. They can plan, they can figure, they can create situations where they will pre-plan things. So, and they can be very volatile. And so somebody does something against them, they're explosive and volatile. And they have teeth this long, and I've got arms, and they can do serious damage to people.
Due to recent changes to legislation, sanctuaries are also seeing an increase in surrendered pet chimps.
Well, I think that those people that own chimps are less out there now. I think that those people should be examining the next step, which would be sanctuary. The pet chimps especially, I think, because I work at the Center for Great Apes, I know what they do and I know it's righteous. I know that they've taken animals in that didn't, you wouldn't think would have a chance to be integrated into a group and then become a chimp, but I've seen it happen. And I know people that have turned their chimps over to us who we don't deny them access. They get to come and visit. We don't disallow them from coming to visit their ex-pets. But we have a number of people that had chimp pets that realized their mistake and have rectified that by turning their chimps over to us. So, the reality is that this is ending slowly but surely, and it's fewer and fewer chimps are sold in the United States per year. There are probably around 400 chimps that are still kind of up in the air in terms of what's going to happen, where they're going to go. And slowly but surely, we are attempting to move the chimps that aren't in an accredited situation into an accredited situation.
Chimpanzees that come to sanctuaries from private ownership situations often have a hard time learning how to be chimps again.
The chimps who've never seen grass or trees or sky or birds, they're startled by it and they're a little leery of it. They can be fearful to step outside. But a chimp's got a great brain, and it's curious, and it does step out eventually, and it will sit and it will look, and it will figure things out, and it'll watch by example.
Most chimpanzees raised in captivity still enjoy and even seek out human contact.
We here believe in creating an atmosphere where the chimps are trusting of their keepers and of their supervisors, of their people. So you can bring them along. You can make them feel secure. You can give them options of friends. They can choose their friends who they want to hang out with. You give a chimp an opportunity, and you help it along in the areas where it has not been comfortable. They settle very nicely.
There are a number of chimpanzees that have been in situations that are so egregious that I can tell you about one named Clyde, who lived for 35 years in a box in a garage. That's just wrong. And so when an animal like that comes to the Center for Great Apes, we read as best we can the behavior of that animal, and we do what's best we think for them. If they solicit our attention, we give it to them. If they solicit our grooming, for example, not all of us, but the ones of us that have been clearly trained and checked out so that we don't lose our hands or fingers or whatever, we do that. What we do more than anything, though, is we try to interject that chimp in with other chimps. We try to introduce them together, and we've been fairly successful at the center.
Some captive chimps even prefer being with humans to being with other chimpanzees.
There are a couple of cases that, and one in particular, a chimpanzee that a beloved chimp to me that passed away a few years ago named Denise. She just didn't get along with chimps. She didn't have that opportunity to be a chimp when she was young, and she didn't like chimps. She grew up in a home. She drank beers and cigarettes, used cigarettes, and when she came to us, it was very tough, and she was a tough lady. She didn't like chimps. She wanted to be with humans. And at the end of Denise's life for the last 2 years, we did the best we could to make her life as fun and as positive. Still being around other chimps, just not in direct contact because it didn't work out for her. But for the most part, we tried as best we can to get chimps with other chimps. And it's a beautiful thing when you see a chimp that's never been with a chimp grooming one another, rolling around and being a chimp. And when that happens, we don't interject. We purposefully move away from that. We attempt to let them be chimps. We don't approach them. If they approach us and if they solicit our, like, hey, Bob, come over here, because chimps know how to, get your attention. Like that, for example, or or whatever, they get your attention, then you know it. And then you decide whether or not, that's something that's appropriate or not.
The consensus among great ape experts is that chimpanzees need to live like chimpanzees. Martine believes that even captive colonies should be able to live as wild chimps.
It's interesting. I believe in the case of chimpanzees, I think every chimp group anywhere in the world should be allowed to reproduce every 5, 6, 7 years. Because a baby in a chimp colony is a glue that keeps them together. It is the joy. They are so alive. They are so interested in the baby. And there are aunts, and there are uncles, and there are kids to play with, and everybody loves a baby. And I think the quality of life for chimps is greatly enhanced when every so often there's a baby. So I believe, although we don't do it, but I personally believe we should allow decent-sized groups of chimps to have a baby every so many years.
Chimpanzee family groups may seem similar to humans, and their babies may seem just as adorable as human babies. But all that we have learned about chimps tells us that no matter how much they resemble humans, they are simply not meant to live as humans.
Well, I am against captivity in the sense that for these animals that shouldn't be captive, but I also understand that they came to be in the situation they are over time, and from a time when we don't have the viewpoint we do now, and so some of the chimps are caught up in that. For the most part, they're aging out. I mean, we have a lot of 40, 50-year-old chimps that are passing away in sanctuaries. And as they pass away, the numbers dwindle. And ultimately, I think that those situations will end. There won't be the surplus of animals that we had in the 60s and 70s and 80s when there wasn't a moratorium on breeding and that sort of thing.
Find a nice sanctuary and place that animal in a nice sanctuary to allow this animal to have an opportunity to grow up to be a chimpanzee.
In the United Kingdom, exotic pet ownership is on the rise. However, not all owners possess the knowledge or experience to provide adequate care for these animals. Ark Wildlife Park is the United Kingdom's first rescue zoo, homing over 180 animals who have been rescued or donated from private pet ownership.
Ark Wildlife Park originally started off life as purely a reptile sanctuary. So all the snakes and lizards in here are ex-pets, and then over the years people started bringing us more and more unusual and weirder animals. This in here is a little grey-banded king snake. This little lady in particular is an albino, so she's got some beautiful coloration on her. And you can see why these guys are popular as a pet species. These little snakes and lizards can make great pets because if you go away for the weekend, as long as you've made sure there's someone to give them some fresh water, these guys aren't going to pine for you like a cat or a dog is going to, and they certainly don't need taking out for walks. So in some respects, they can actually be much less lower maintenance than sort of some of our more traditional pet animals like cats and dogs. But whether you actually get that reciprocal love come back to you, not really, I'm afraid. I don't think she'd ever miss me if I wasn't around. Like with any pet, people really need to do their research. And the other thing you have to factor in, a hamster or a gerbil is going to be with you 2-3 years. This little lady here, she can potentially be with us for about 20 odd years. So reptiles, as a general rule, not all species, but as a general rule, they can have quite long lifespans. Compared to sort of most pet species, no, they thrive in a much smaller environment because that's what they're sort of designed to do. The reason why you go out into the countryside, you very rarely, if ever, you'll see a snake coming across you because they're too busy hiding. That's what snakes do, I think. So they do like to be sort of like a bit more confined than traditional animals. A small crocodilian, the best way to handle them is to grab them firmly right behind the jawline so they can't swing their head back and grab you. Rudolph's reaching the size now where another foot or so I wouldn't be happy handling him, but at this size, one man can easily handle one of these crocodilians if you know what you're doing and you've been trained. Again, this is where it comes to, they don't make good pets. Make a mistake, they can easily take your finger off. Just going to go in behind, grab him by the back of the head, gently ease him out, and then keep your hand locked behind and also support the hind quarters, more for his comfort than anything. Certainly when he starts getting much bigger than this, we wouldn't be actively handling him. Nowhere near fully grown yet, but he's potentially going to max out about 7 or 8 foot long. Like most of the animals here on the park, he's one of our rescues, an ex-pet that was being kept illegally. These guys have got one of the strongest bite forces of any animal in the animal kingdom. The crocodilians have got a very powerful bite. Even at this size, this guy could easily remove my fingers, which is why I keep my hands nice and firmly locked behind his jaws, but they're certainly, I couldn't think of a worse animal to have as a pet, really. This guy can potentially live 50 or 60 years. So that's the other thing people have to consider when they get a pet reptile, even the more common pet species like corn snakes and leopard geckos. They're not like a hamster or a gerbil that's going to be with you a couple of years. They've got the potential, a lot of these pet reptiles, 30, 40 years easily. But of course you have to factor in, potentially they are dangerous. No, he's never bitten me, but I don't give him the chance to. Crocodilians, you can't trust them. It's not like a dog or a cat. Even though he's quite relaxed and laid back as far as crocodilians go, I'd never trust him. I don't give him that opportunity, so I'd never let him just sit on my lap loose, as it were. It only takes one mistake and you're going to lose a finger, so it's just not worth it.
Another animal that shouldn't be confused for a house pet is the lynx. While they may look like a beautiful feline, the lynx is a wild cat and a very skilled predator.
This is Echo, and she's our beautiful Eurasian lynx. They cover historically Europe and Asia, used to actually be native here to the UK. And all lynx are characterised by those wonderful little tufts on the tip of the ears and the little short bob tail. And they're the characteristics of the 4 lynx species. She's been with us since she was only a little kit. She's not a rescue, she was brought in as an ambassador animal. We want to start helpfully raising funds for the Iberian lynx breeding project, her close cousin, which is also unfortunately the most endangered wildcat species in the world. I certainly couldn't recommend any wildcat species as being kept as a pet. She certainly has a loyalty to me because she's known me since she was a kit and I can safely come in here with her, but I'm the only one that comes in with her just to be on the safe side. At the end of the day, she's a wild animal. You've got to treat them like that. She's not a domestic cat. Despite the purring and the rolling on her back for belly rubs, it can be very easy to forget that these guys are a wild animal. And she's certainly got the strength, the ability, and the armoury. These guys have got big, long, old claws and teeth on them to do some nasty damage to me. If she was a tiger or a lion, I certainly wouldn't be in here with her, no matter what the bond we have. If she were to have a bad day, I'd walk away from the situation, whereas if she was something like a tiger, I wouldn't. But either way, you've got to remember these are wild animals, so you've got to treat them with that sort of level of respect. They are a predator, basically purely meat eaters. Even things like wolves and wild canines, they will actually take vegetable matter into their diet, but cats are strictly, as a general rule, they're meat eaters. They're one of the most efficient predators on the planet, cats. They're fantastically designed to do what they do. Lynx are what you'd call one of the larger members of the small wildcat species, so that excludes things like leopards, cheetahs, tigers and lions. They're nowhere near the size of the big guys, as it were. But as far as more the sort of wild species of small cat, like servals, ocelots, margays, they're certainly one of the larger species. If people really want to look after an animal like this and they're willing to give it a lovely big enclosure and give it the respect and the time it deserves, then by all means do so, but never be fooled into thinking that this is a suitable pet species. For sort of 99.5% of people that consider maybe keeping a wild cat as a pet, they're really not suitable.
Foxes. They're a controversial animal that divide the public's opinion. Some see them as pests and tricksters, while others think they're adorable. Keeping a fox in Britain is legal, however, not without its challenges. They are cheeky, as our crew found out when this guy decided to investigate the camera bag.
Yeah, anything new in their enclosure has to be investigated. That's what you'd call your traditional UK fox. These grey girls, they are actually exactly the same species. They're just a colour variation that you might be more familiar with in North America. We do rarely get this sort of melanistic dark black grey version in the wild. All three of these guys were born and bred for the UK pet industry. They're incredibly intelligent animals. As you can see, he's enjoying an ear scrunch, much like a dog would. But this again is where people sometimes think that maybe they're a good alternative to a dog, and they really aren't. They haven't had those thousands of years of domestication. They're really not designed to live indoors. We've heard some reports of foxes being kept in people's flats, and again, they really need to be kept outside if you're going to keep a fox in a nice, big, large outdoor enclosure. They could certainly give you a painful nip. They're not going to remove a finger. They're not going to do anything that's going to cause you any permanent damage, but they could certainly give you a nasty nip if you weren't expecting it. Being a zookeeper, this is part of the risk, so we do occasionally, when we have to handle these animals, give them vaccinations. They will give you a nip, and it's not a pleasant experience, but I wouldn't class them as a dangerous animal in the same respect as maybe the caiman or the lynx. Not having had that domestication, there's far more chance of getting a nip off a pet fox than there would be a dog.
Ark Wildlife Park is the home to many different types of animals. Some familiar, like these rabbits, goats, and pigs, and others a little more unusual. But they all have something in common. They were once pets in a private ownership. Ark Wildlife Park is the place that animals end up when private pet owners don't or can't care for them. It's important to remember that exotics are not for everyone. These animals will live out their lives in captivity, but play a role in educating the public on the reality of keeping exotic pets. Humans have had a close relationship with animals for thousands of years. Scientists agree the domestic dog has been a trusted pet for around 15,000 years, and cats became part of the household from 10,000 years ago. And now it's estimated there are at least 600 million pet cats in the world. Exotic pets have also been kept for thousands of years. It's well documented that the Egyptians kept baboons as pets, and exotic animals kept in the home feature in many ancient texts. In modern times, the keeping of exotic pets has increased. A staggering statistic is that there are more tigers in the U.S. alone than there are in the wild. Animal owners truly believe they are playing a role in preserving the numbers of exotic animals. But on the other side of the debate, there are those who believe it is a cruel practice to keep any animals in captivity. This series explores the issues from both sides, from those who know the dangers, but see the benefits, to others who condemn the keeping of exotic pets. Their stories follow. In Abney Park Cemetery, North London, there is an unusual gravesite, a sleeping lion, a memorial to Frank C. Bostock. Frank was a showman who toured with exotic animals throughout Europe. In 1893, he moved to America and connected the masses with these amazing creatures. He is credited as being the first person to bring a pet lion to the U.S. Frank was known to have been mauled several times, which is thought to have contributed to his early death in 1912 at the age of 46. Was this where the owning of great cats as pets began in the U.S. and continues to this day?
The Lion Week. And as you can see here, this little pet Squeaky the lion makes a wonderful house pet.
The danger factor is always there with these large feline pets, as this old clip shows. Watching it is a little unsettling, but it isn't enough to stop more and more people seeking the unusual as a pet.
Animals are family, and it doesn't matter if it's a tiny little house cat or, a lion or tiger or bear. You have that connection with animals regardless of size. When I was young, I used to think I could save the world. And I was always dragging home misfits, and I worked at a veterinary clinic for a while, and don't put the dog to sleep, I'll find him a home.
Jill Carnegie's passion to save animals has become her lifelong mission. But her focus is not just about rehoming the neighborhood dog. In the town of Sharon, Wisconsin, the Valley of the Kings Sanctuary is home to a large variety of exotic animals. Abused, abandoned, retired, and injured, these large pets aren't for the faint-hearted. And for Jill, having a rebellious streak has led her to this amazing work.
When I was a child, I was always dragging things home and getting into trouble. My mother hates animals. She's 96 years old, she's still alive. And we had many, many discussions about animals, and I ended up getting married young when I was 17 to basically get out of the house. And I married a guy because he had a horse, which is really stupid. But, and then we ended up here. I divorced him in '96 and then remarried Jim, who loves animals as much as I do. We've been married 20 years now.
Jill and Jim are dedicated to looking after the welfare of their animals. Sanctuaries are common in the U.S., so there's a need to rehome. In captivity, big cats have been known to attack humans with devastating results. This horrific scene is testament to what can go wrong. A man trying to feed a couple of circus animals finds out the hard way that a tiger is a predator and one that can strike at any time. The defense is a couple of wooden poles, but the man struggles to save his hand. From minor injuries to permanent disability and even death, it's never wise to assume a big cat is a tame animal, no matter where you might find it. In Jill's sanctuary, there's no crossing of the boundaries, even if one of their residents was once a family pet.
This is Janie. She's grumpy. She hasn't been here very long. She's from a lady in Texas who has cancer, and she couldn't care for her. She was a pet, and she actually adored the lady. She's still adjusting. It'll take her time. The interesting thing is I can come out and she's fine with me. I can give her treats and talk to her, and she rolls over, and I don't go in with her. I wouldn't trust her. She's actually a very sweet cat. She just doesn't like a lot of people. She feels threatened. And she's got to adjust living with a few girls down here, which she's not crazy about. So eventually she'll have a buddy when we get a male lion in. And then we do vasectomies because we don't believe in breeding. So she'll be happy. Callie, hi girl. This was someone's pet. They lived in Florida. She is about 17 years old, and she's been here ever since she's been about 5. She lived in their house till she was about 4 or 5 years old, and she had the run of their backyard. And then they had to move, and no place would allow them to have their lion. Well, come on. Come on, there we go. What a good tiger. You're such a good tiger. He's one of the biggest tigers we have, but we have one that's even larger. And he's 17, so he's not a youngster by any stretch. But he's been here since he was 4 months old. He was somebody's pet in Big Bend, Wisconsin. They bought him illegally from a breeder in Arizona. And then they realized when he was about 4 months old that the furniture and the kids were not safe. And so they did the right thing and brought him out. And then they said, we will never get another exotic again. So thank God for that. He's probably at least, I would put him 1,100 pounds easily. Yeah, he's massive.
There is no doubt Kubla is one very large animal, and with that size comes a big appetite. Tigers rely primarily on sight and sound for hunting. They will see you long before you have any idea they've been sizing you up. A tiger can consume almost 100 pounds of meat at a time. Large prey are no barrier. Even if you've been working with your trained cats for decades, you can never trust a tiger. It only takes one shocking moment to change your life to near death, as this Spanish circus trainer found out during a performance. Kubla doesn't have to go on the prowl for anything but more affection. And with Jill around, that's a given.
He's an absolute love bug. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. But you always have to remember that they're trained and never tamed. They are who they are, and even a good one can cause serious harm. So you just don't want to, especially the older I get, I guess I get smarter too. Yeah, we always take tons and tons of precautions. And in 44 years, we've never had an injury, never had an escape, never had anything happen. Knock on wood. And everything that's come in as babies get huge like this, I think because we feed every day. We don't believe in fasting them. And they get an enormous amount of calcium and vitamins and absolutely everything that they need, where a lot of private people don't have a clue what the animals should get. We've gotten cougars in with rickets, others with broken bones, and just all kinds of horrible things. So a zoo will take ground meat, put it on a little platter, slide it under and take it away. So they don't have anything to chew on, and then maybe one day they'll give them bones. so they can chew on a bone. But the zoo cats that we've gotten in have had slab fractures, really bad teeth that our vets have had to put back together again. These guys, ones that have come in when they're young that we've raised, even when they're senior citizens and we knock them out, their teeth are absolutely pristine because they get everything that they need, the hide, the bone, just everything. Plus they get supplements.
Jill feels right at home with these enormous cats. These are her adored pets. But when the need arose, she took a big step out of her comfort zone to start welcoming large Syrian grizzlies to the sanctuary.
So gentle, yeah. Which at first I was like, grizzly bears? I don't think so. And when I saw them and how gentle they were, I'm like, okay, this could be doable.
Jill's not at ease with these enormous bears, but is growing to like having them around. However, choosing to hang out with these massive predators inside the cage, knowing they're capable of suddenly turning on anyone, isn't a choice for most of us. Is this bravery or a death wish? Bears are aggressive. Camping in their territory is a risk to you and your property. And yet, many people have these same bears living in their homes. Deaths from bear attacks are rare in the U.S. On average, 3 people per year are taken, which makes the odds of being killed very small. But does this risk increase with more exposure? While Jill devotes her life to caring for her pets, there also comes that heartbreaking time when you need to say goodbye.
We hold the record for the oldest living feline in the world, and that was Sammy. He lived to be 36 years old, a purebred Sumatran tiger. And he was a little butterball the day we put him to sleep, sadly, but his hips gave out. So when the quality of life is gone, then it's time for them. We cremate all of our big cats and our other animals. That way no one can dig them up 100 years from now and get them. I'm like King Tut with the grave, so. And this is Huggy. This is the one that I have to put to sleep, and it's really killing me. He's an old man. He's in multiple organ failure. But it's his time. He's 22 years old. It's heartbreaking, even though you know it's the right thing to do, you know. This time next week, he'll probably be passed on to Rainbow Bridge. Yeah, but I'm gonna miss him. I will absolutely miss him terribly. It's really hard. I have a lot of favorites that are buried here. I had lost my son in 1998 in a car accident, and he's buried here, and this is where Jim and I will be buried as well, because we want to be with those we love. I don't want to be in a human cemetery. It just doesn't feel right. I love the elderly, and I love the misfits. That's really where my heart is. And when a cat is old and senile, they forget they eat. So you feed them, and 10 minutes later, they're like, hello, I didn't eat today, and you got to give them some more, and that goes on all day.
Jill is a seasoned conservationist. Her motivation is about rescue.
It's so amazing. When they're rescued, they're completely different than one you've raised as a kid. They are so grateful. And the exotics are exactly the same way, because we loaded these animals up and they know they're going to a better place instantly.
This certainly is a better place with superior conditions than where these animals have come from. For Lena and her mate Thina, their lives have improved remarkably.
And we have a little crippled tiger here. This is one of my favorites. This is Lena. She came out of the same seizure in Indiana, and the SWAT team was there. They had all their long guns, and it was pretty scary. Here she comes. There she comes. And you can see her knees are really bad. Hi. The way she walks. Hi, little pumpkin. Hi, how are you? This cat and this other cat over here, They lived in circus roll crates. 6 foot by 4 foot, maybe 5 foot, their entire lives. They were in a dark barn, no light. We had to use bolt cutters to open all the locks because it had been ever since they were just prisoners in those little areas. When Lena came, she would sit and she could kind of paddle around like this on her feet, and then she'd do this, like stargazing. And now, as you can see, she can run and she can play. And our vet is amazed that she gets around as well as she did because it was not expected at all. But she probably will never live to see old age because of her handicap. But for the time that we have with her, you know, we'll do anything and everything for her. But this owner that owned this cat, it was horrific. He was an older circus mentality kind of person, and then once a year he'd roll the wagons out for the neighborhood kids to see and then roll them back into their dark barn. He would take a stick and just scoop the poop out and all over the floor in there. It was awful. It's probably one of the worst seizures that we've ever been on. It was absolutely horrific. This is the other one that came with Lena that lived in a circus roll crate. This is Thina. She was very young to begin with when we got her. She's about 18 months old. So she wasn't left in that condition. So like this one was for 6 years to become neurotic. But most of the neurotic behaviors is gone now, which is great. But she doesn't seem to have been scarred at all as far as, you know, being abused like that. She's really got a cute personality. She's very outgoing. She does have broken teeth from grabbing the bars where she lived. And she was really thin when she came. He's so sweet, but even though he's got hybrid in him, you can't trust him. They have a switch because they've got the wolf in them. But he's a very sweet boy. He loves his attention. He loves his cuddles. Yeah, you're a good boy. We lost his sister to cancer when she was 3. Hi, Milo. I think he's 8 or 9. And it's very interesting because we have a couple volunteers that he hates, and he will actually charge the fence to eat them. Yes, it's amazing. I mean, like, he knows you guys are all animal people. What a good boy.
Like many homes, there's often a need for renovations, and the Valley of the Kings Sanctuary is no different. Nestled on 10 acres of farmland, the sanctuary was established more than 30 years ago. And as more funding comes through, the better the conditions become for these majestic creatures.
If every sanctuary in America did not have big cats and was empty and they had a place to go, that would be my dream. I would tell you, if we could buy the property that surrounds us, I would give them, if we had the money, 2, 3, 4, 5 acre pens. That would be the ultimate. It'd be awesome. The interesting thing is when they come from an area that they have a small pen and you give them a larger pen, they're so happy and content with what they have because they've never had a large area. The one lion that was kept in a circus roll crate her entire life, we just moved her to the big area up in the compound, and she didn't know what to do. She would stay in the small area and she would kind of look around. She wouldn't play with her toys. She wouldn't roar or vocalize. And it took her about 2 weeks to figure out, okay, so I can go over here, and oh my gosh, I can go over there too, and oh, there's a toy, and now she's playing and acting like a normal animal. So it's kind of like you have to get inside of their heads to kind of rearrange their thinking that, okay, it's okay to have that much room.
Jill and her husband are very committed to ensuring their beautiful animals have a great second chance to a much improved life.
You come to the point you can't save them all. It's not humanly possible. But if everybody took care of their own backyard and did what they could, that the world would truly be a better place. So everyone who comes through our gates, we make a lifetime commitment to, and they're here forever through thick and thin and illness and whatever, and I know that the time that we need to let them go, that they had a good life for the time that they had with us.
Well, yeah, I get bitten every day. Well, probably not every day, but once a week. And that's because I breed pythons. I breed young snakes that are harmless. Pythons don't have any venom. Some snakes may be technically venomous, but not that bad. So I've had a few bites I don't count. If you get to the pointy end, I've had 4 intensive care visits. So 4 times the word's been a bit touch and go. Every time was something I did wrong, yes. And when you do something over and over, sometimes it's complacency sets in.
Just how close would you get to a snake? To feel the snake's body slithering against your skin. Even experienced snake handlers, like this one in Cyprus, who removed the snake from the neighbor's backyard, can run into a problem. Yes? The adrenaline factor is huge, but the consequences can make for a very bad day. However, when you're performing for a crowd, it's all about the showmanship.
This one here is a tiger snake and potentially very, very lethal if it bit you. Because this one's captive bred and it's used to me and I've never given it any reason to bite me. Snakes aren't designed just to bite for no reason. If it did, it would be, yeah, a bad day. It's potentially one of the most lethal land snakes in the world. He won't just bite you. This is the misconception. He doesn't want to bite you to get away. So often you won't get a warning. You'll hear a rustle in the bush and that's him already getting away. 80% of our hospitalised bites, people trying to catch and kill the snake. It's simple. People think they're dangerous and because they've got to deal with this dangerous animal and they deal with it by getting the shovel, trying to kill it, and then they realise how quick and agile these animals are when it's too late.
Australian Gary Davies has had a fascination with snakes since he was 5 years old. He knew he wanted to be a snake man. Over the years, he gathered a collection of the most venomous, including the tiger snake, king brown, and death adder. Add to that a few different species of pythons and lizards, and you've got a rather uncommon assortment of pets. For Gary, this passion for reptiles has led to a career working with snakes and educating the public. But quite frankly, it seems Gary prefers snakes to humans.
Look, honestly, what a man and his snake do in the privacy of their own snake shed is a different story. But in public, I don't go handling snakes in order like this. It's just to show you that they are not, you know, red-hot killers that are out to get us. Naturally, I'm not his prey. Tiger snakes are far from violent or aggressive animals. In fact, if you're going to learn snakes, tiger snakes and king browns are one of the most quietest, easily chilled snakes of the venomous snakes there are.
If you're new to snakes, perhaps starting with a couple of Australia's most venomous isn't for the beginner. They may be laid back and chilled out, but you don't want to be surprising them.
You keep within boundaries. I'm not doing anything to cause this snake to actually bite me. And he is getting close to full grown now. But it's not about size. Venom, it doesn't come down to size with venom. You know, you need a mil of venom. It doesn't matter how big the snake is. So it's not like, oh, he's too big to handle. No. That one there it's going to give you, you know, a bad day as bad as anything on the planet can, as far as venom, you know. I don't recommend it as a pet. If you want to like snakes, there's a whole lot of less toxic snakes, you know, safer snakes to keep. But if tiger snakes are your thing and you've got to that stage, then great, you know, I'm all for it. But I just don't suggest it for someone thinking about a pet snake. No, don't think of a tiger snake. Don't think of a venomous snake. I think keeping venomous snake is something you evolve to and you get to rather than trying to aspire to.
If you're thinking a tiger snake might be off the pet list, After all, it is one of the top 3 most venomous land snakes in Australia. Then you may be interested in the king brown. It comes in much lower on the danger scale, at around number 6.
This is a king brown. Particularly huge for a king brown.
Might not be able to hold up. But it is a venomous snake that's very, very active.
Yeah, he's going to be a lot more active. He wasn't captive bred. He was actually wild caught under licence. But he has got used to me and that I don't hurt him, so he's in the process of calming down very well. But it is a process thing where this one I won't give the same sort of luxuries as I would that tiger snake. It's just understanding your own animal again. He can turn around and bite, but he's slowly learning since he's been caught that, oh, well, this guy's not too bad.
If you're a snake in captivity, you don't get to choose your owner. But Gary is a role model for responsible pet ownership.
For one, he's a reptile feeder, so he'll feed on other snakes. He's pretty good at catching and killing, overpowering even death adders, other venomous snakes. So I'd never keep him together with another snake, especially if he's hungry.
Great tip for the uninitiated. It pays to do your research. Snake ownership is serious business. There's a lot to learn in order to stay safe.
The king brown is the largest member of the black snake family, so he's not actually a brown snake. But because he's often brown in colour, they've called him the king brown. The other name is mulga snake, which is probably a better name. If you got bitten by this, you'd need black snake antivenom, not brown snake. They're very widespread, so they're found right throughout the whole of Australia, except for the very southeast and the very southwest. Now, a big one of these can push 3 metres, and that's probably the Kimberley forms. The ones in the Kimberley are the biggest. And you grab one of them by the tail in the wild, you know you've got a snake when he's 3 metres long. A snake that big and with the name King Brown, that's where he gets these reputation from. And everything that happens, people talk about, oh, did you hear about the King Brown? And these are stories that have been exaggerated because it sounds such an aggressive animal, it sounds so big. Yes, it's a perception of deadliness. It can be dangerous, but again, I think we carry the legends a lot more than the actual reality deserves. If they're not natural predators, they're going to bite out of fear. Now, you can break down that fear. They're not scared of you so much. There's no reason for them just to bite randomly.
Fear is quite possibly the #1 reason why you would be bitten. If you see a snake sliding through the bush or accidentally step on one, there's a really good chance you're going to panic and perhaps end up in the hospital. Even with all of Gary's experience, he's admitted to a few close calls.
I've been handling venomous snakes for well over 25 years. Anytime you get bitten, it's because you've crossed a line, you've been complacent. And hopefully that brings you down to earth and you see your mistake, or else you're just going to make it again. There's always an adrenaline rush when, like you said, you know it can go wrong in a second. You've got to be dead if you don't get adrenaline out of that. You hold a tiger snake like this, I mean, you've got to be dead if you don't get some sort of adrenaline rush. But that's not the right reason to keep them. To keep them for the beauty of the animal. You're working with these animals, you've got to have the understanding there's certain lines you don't cross. You've got to respect that potential risk. There has to be a knowledge of it and an understanding that if I make a mistake here, this is going to end badly for me. There's a hot zone. So while you're in that hot zone, where you're in a hot zone, that's where the potential is. You stay out of that and you're quite, you know, he's not lurking, waiting for you. Well, not if you're a good keeper. If you lose them around the house and they're just lurking somewhere you don't know, but a good keeper with snakes, he's got an enclosure where he lives and, you know when it's, you're in a dangerous position, and that's when you've got to be switched on.
Owning any pet that is considered a little unusual often comes with risks that can be fatal. But it can be an adventure for the seasoned, unusual pet lover.
You can potentially keep one as a pet, but you have to show the authorities, take the right steps before they deem that you're safe enough to keep one. I would never suggest anyone keeping king browns or tiger snakes unless they've kept snakes for a long time and they actually know quite a bit about venomous snakes. You can only really learn that by experience. But the adventure side is getting out there in the scrub and actually finding these animals. And that's my passion, finding king browns in the field, in the wild, and watching what they do. And that's where our learning comes from, you know. So I guess that's my passion, but everyone's different.
If you're convinced you're ready to proudly own a pet snake, then moving to a non-venomous variety is a great place to start. Although they can still be a bit of a handful. Meet Bob.
He's an older python. His name's Bob, but I've had him about 14 years from birth. He's been around people his whole life. He works with kids and in crowds, and often if I'm standing close to someone who's holding him, he will come over to me. And he doesn't love me. I have no doubt he doesn't love me and has affection for me, but I'm a familiar scent to him, just like if he had a hollow log in the wild that's a familiar place. It's a familiar scent.
Bob is likely to reach a maximum length of 4.5 to 5 meters. But olive pythons have been known to get up to 6.5 meters or more. That's a lot of snake to keep your eye on.
Me and Bob, often there's things that happen around the house that people would think strange. I'm making a sandwich with him around my neck. Seems strange to some people, I guess. It's quite normal around my house. I guess sometimes people think of pets as something that you can cuddle and grab hold of. Now, to me, not necessarily true. You know, you don't have to pat an animal. You can still have a pet and just enjoy it for what it is. And I think that maybe that's a line that some people call some things a pet because they can cuddle it at night and give it a hug. Some animals don't necessarily want to be hugged. But does that make them not a pet? If you're looking after them, you keep an animal in captivity and you give it all its needs and you look after it and it's a healthy animal and you get enjoyment out of it, then to me that's a pet. You've got to have respect, and they can be dangerous, but there's so many things in this world that can be dangerous, you know? Some people get married, God, you know, that's danger there. You know, each to their own, really. Some people think that reptiles are easy, especially snakes, easy pets to keep, and I don't like that attitude, because you think you're going to get a pet because it's easy to keep, then that's probably the wrong reason to get them. They can be easy once you understand their needs, but sometimes their needs aren't as simple as people think. You know, a lot of people think, oh, you just keep them warm. Well, keeping them warm, you can kill them by overheating them. I do what I love. Since I was 5 years old, I loved snakes, so if I could turn my life into snakes, that's what I did. But again, it comes down to some people keep it just for their own ego, especially when it comes down to, well, predator pets or things that are potentially dangerous. Often the person's keeping it just to say, look at me, you know, and I think that's the wrong sort of person, and often they're the ones that make mistakes. And in this game, the problem becomes ours because someone keeps things for a wrong reason. If they get bitten by a tiger snake, they make the news. And there's knee-jerk reactions that come to the rest of the hobby. Everyone that keeps these animals has to get affected by the weakest few. So to me, I always believe that people, if they want to keep venomous snakes particularly, as long as they know what they're doing and they are doing it for the right reasons, not just to be tough or look at me, because that's just going to end wrong sooner or later.
People see these cats on Disney films, you know, oh, they all look all friendly and I want one of those. And what happens? They get one and oh dear, it attacks me. It's destroyed my house. Oh, I don't want it anymore. That's the pet side. But then a number of these private breeders are doing the job properly.
Dr. Terry Moore knows cats. In fact, he loves cats so much he has devoted his life to ensuring the survival of a wide number of species. But don't be fooled by the fact that Terry is in the enclosure with this Temix golden cat. These cats are quick and can attack. However, in the right hands, they can be mostly controlled.
And there's the African golden cat, which is much more orange than this. Keeping cats in captivity, there's the pluses and the minuses. If they're doing it properly, and there are a lot of private breeders in this country that we work with, a lot of the private breeders work with zoos and are providing livestock for show in zoos so that people can come along and just understand why we need to protect them. But then you've got to differentiate between the people who look after the animals properly and the ones who just want them for status. You know, I've got this cat. having one as a pet, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work, because very few of these cats are friendly enough to be classed as a pet.
These cats are all in good hands at the Cat Survival Trust. While the trust is focused on long-term conservation of cats in the wild, this 12-acre property at Hertfordshire, England, is a haven for unwanted and surplus wild cats from zoos and other collections where cats have proven to be too much of a handful.
When I was studying at London University back in the 60s, I was actually working part of the time for my uncle's firm in aviation insurance to pay my way. And one day I went into Harrods, and there was a South American margay for sale for £300. And I thought about this. I thought, that's a nice cat, and for the wrong reason, to have it as a pet. And I went away and got the money together, and 3 weeks later went back to buy it, but unfortunately Lady Fisher of Kilberton Wildlife Park beat me to it. But between 66, which is when I saw this cat, and 75, I accumulated so many books about wild cats and realised that, you know, there were 37 species of cat, not just your lions and tigers, but, you know, such amazing cats as pampas cat and Andean mountain cat and sand cat and Eremite cat and so on, which I'd never heard of. I mean, they weren't in the school curriculum. So I really got into this and felt, well, something ought to be done. And realised very quickly, after a few years, that sadly there wasn't a rescue operation in England to take surplus and unwanted cats. So a group of us got together, and in '75 we formed the charity, basically to look after unwanted and confiscated cats from illegal collections. He's getting a bit heavy to hold, and you've got to be careful when you're holding him. It's uncomfortable for him. The Eurasian lynx is an interesting one. The Scandinavian, there are about 2,000-3,000 left. The Central European are 200 or 300, and the Italian down to about 40. This is a Central European, so with 200 or 300 left is not good. He's only really friendly with 4 of us. We used to allow people in with him, but not anymore. He picks up on the slightest element of fear and get quite aggressive.
Working with these animals requires a lot of knowledge on what makes them tick.
We wanted to study cats in the wild. We wanted to find some ways of perhaps preserving cats in the wild, keeping them safe in the wild. We wanted to provide an educational service. The first 30 years were pretty difficult, although in '92 we did manage to buy 10,000 acres of virgin forest in northeast Argentina with 5 species of cat living free in their own environment. And in future we want to buy more natural habitat, because keeping animals in their own environment is by far the most economic, most ethical way. And of course, to save cats, you've got to have that entire ecosystem intact. Any part of that food chain is out and the cats are going to die.
There is no doubt the work that Terry and his team of volunteers do is vital to the survival of many cat species. The jaguar is endangered, and the work at the Cat Survival Trust is about helping animals like Athena, affectionately known as Jags. But we all know looks can be deceiving.
Jaguars are only found in South and Central America. They're quite different from the leopards. They're much bigger, much chunkier, and much more dangerous. They'll take crocodiles out of the rivers and just crunch them. Give her a whole deer and there is nothing left. I mean, she will eat the skull, the hooves, absolutely everything. I go in with all the cats here with the exception of the jaguar and the Amur leopards, because she was already an adult when she came. I didn't have the chance to build a relationship with her, and she wouldn't know her own strength. She'd want to play hard.
The unpredictability of a pet in captivity is never something to be ignored.
Out of all the cats we keep here, she's probably the most dangerous. cats are potentially dangerous and not ideal as pets in any way.
Big cats have an enormous appeal as a pet, particularly when they're young. They are playful and often have many of the enduring characteristics of a domestic cat. However, when you think what a domestic cat can do to a small mouse, you'd have to be mindful that the time may come where you could end up being the big cat's human mouse to torment and tease until your last breath is taken. Perhaps these cats are far more spectacular in the wild than in your backyard. But for these cats to roam free, a lot of work needs to be done.
Keeping cats in captivity is a sort of stopgap. Let's face it, most of the wild places where you find cats are being wiped out. There's just too many humans. We need oil, we need minerals, we need metals, we're destroying the habitat. And so every species is seeing falling numbers every year. The way it's going, we could lose every single species, not only of cats, but everything else.
Research and breeding programs are vital to save these animals.
Zoos have played a major part in education, allowing people to understand why animals are important. There are some very good zoos who do a lot of conservation work. You know, they breed certain species in captivity and then release them back into the wild. For the good zoos that have lots of information, lots of placards and posters all about why we have to save animals, that's great. But I think what we have to do is look really seriously at the zoos that are underfunded, that aren't looking after the animals properly, and they should be closed. So the question is, in the future, so many of these cats that have many subspecies, how relevant is it to say, right, let's save all of the different subspecies? Pumas, originally, they thought to be 29 subspecies. So when you've got a species like the puma, what you find is that those that are living near the equator are much smaller. Those living away from the equator are much bigger and much chunkier, and their fur is much thicker. Sadly, because jaguar need much stronger enclosures, this is a much thicker wire than you would keep any of the other cats that we have in. Zoos can't generally afford to build a huge enclosure like this with this extra cost added to the wire. She's now unfortunately too old to breed, and because the Jaguar stud book have said, look, if we breed a load, where are we going to put them? Because zoos can't afford to build this sort of enclosure anymore. So there is a restriction on breeding. Generally speaking, stud books are there to make sure that we don't get surpluses in official collections. And that's very sensible with the jaguar, because there's a fair number left in the wild, although as they destroy more and more forest, we're losing habitat at such an amazing rate, and ultimately some of the subspecies could disappear.
Whether you're looking at these cats thinking, I want one as a lovable, purring pet, or if you feel you should get on board to help save many species of big cats, it's clear the survival of these incredible animals is up to the human race. We've hunted to the point of extinction. We've destroyed habitats, but we can still make a difference.
My number 2 is more than capable of taking over. We have a number of volunteers who potentially could take over in future times. And we're very lucky. We've had a lot of volunteers in the past who are emailing me quite frequently. Are we in a position to have them back? They don't need much money. They just need enough for food and clothing and bits and pieces. We're at a situation now where we know a number of our supporters have left quite substantial sums to the charity, not only to keep it going, but also to buy more natural habitat in countries around the world. So I feel pretty happy about the current situation with the trust. We don't have any debt here. The property is effectively owned by the charity now. I don't have any fears in the future. Too many animal collections don't think ahead. And that is one problem with people who keep exotic cats as pets. What is going to happen when they die? What is going to happen when they can't look after them anymore? But with the huge number of people who keep private collections of all sorts of animals, they really need to think this through, because the only option is to put them down. And then what was the point of having them in the first place? People who keep these animals, a lot of them will have friends and relatives come and see the cats, will learn more about why the cat is endangered, and that will all help towards people in the future providing funding for new projects, particularly in the wild. And certainly we found by having cats here that when we bought our 10,000 acres of forest in Argentina, people were very happy to support it because they saw the cat and they saw why we wanted to save the cat in its own habitat.